call to order the Marshall City Council meeting for Monday, October 21st, 2019. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Karen.
Here.
Councilmember Gates.
Here.
Councilmember McNeil.
Here.
Councilmember Metzger. Here. Councilmember Traver.
Here.
Councilmember Underhill.
Here.
Councilmember Wolfersberger. We have a quorum, Your Honor.
I'd seek a motion to excuse Councilmember Wolfersberger from tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Tonight we will start with an invocation by Brandon Crawford of Grace Baptist Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Our Lord, you tell us in your word to pray for kings and all those in authority, that we might live peaceful and quiet lives. And so, Lord, this evening I want to pray for our mayor and our city manager, for each member of our city council. Lord, I want to pray for our police chief, Lord, and all who are in positions of authority. Lord, I ask your richest blessings on each one of them. I ask you to pour out your grace on each one of them. Lord, give them grace and peace. Give them wisdom. Lord, we pray for your best in each one of their lives. Lord, we also think of those in our city who are poor or sick, who are lonely. Lord, would you shine a light on their needs and help us to meet those needs. Lord, we pray for thriving businesses, nonprofit organizations, and gospel churches, Lord, that you would help us all to learn how to work together to build a city that is worthy of the human person. Thank you for all of your gifts to us. We pray these things in your Son's name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will start this evening with the approval agenda. We'll start with public comment on agenda items, followed by the consent agenda. Item 8A, we have the feral cat presentation. Moving to item 10A, we have a public hearing for the PA 425 conditional land transfer agreement with Marshall Township for 15325 West Michigan Avenue. Item 12A, we have the MDOT contract M227 for the pedestrian bridge. 12B, we have MDOT contract M227 for the pedestrian bridge transfer. Item 12C, we have the emergency sewer repair on West Hanover Street. Under 13A, we have a planning commission appointment, followed by public comment on non-agenda items and council and manager communications. I'd like to add to the agenda item 13B, planning commission appointment, and item 13C, the Northeast Neighborhood Improvement Authority appointment. Any additions, deletions, or questions on the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That brings us to public comment on agenda items. Anyone wishing to speak may do so for 5 minutes. Hearing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. Item 7A, we have to schedule the public hearing for the park ordinance. Item 7B, we have the police officer weapon and accessories purchase program. Item 7C, we have the marijuana license fee resolution. Under 7D, we have the city council minutes for the work session on Monday, October 7th, 2019, and the regular session minutes on the October 7th, 2019. Item 7E, we have the city bills totaling $4,735,894.27. Any questions on the consent agenda? Seek a motion to approve.
So moved.
Support. Roll call vote, please.
Member McNeil.
Yes.
Member Metzger.
Yes.
Member Traver.
Yes.
Member Underhill.
Yes.
Mayor Karen.
Yes.
Member Gates.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next, we have a presentation from Cindy, from Friends of Albion Animals, talking about our feral cat population. Hello.
Forgive me, I'm moving a little slow. I took a fall on Friday, so let's see. I'm just here if there's any questions. So I'll say it. She's probably more familiar face to you than I am. Will everybody be able to see the presentation?
If you want to stand behind the podium, the mic is there. You can turn it however way you want to.
So I'm going to tilt this up. I don't know if it's on or not. I have a bit of a teacher voice. If you have trouble hearing me, let me know. It's an unusual trait. My day job, I'm a librarian and the director of the Albion District Library, but in my off time, I'm also president of Friends of Albion's Animals. So you have a printout available to you so that you can take notes as you go. I apologize, the print on the slides is fairly small, but it is there. I can also send you a digital copy of the presentation if that would be helpful. Oh, I'm actually in my own way here. So, history of Friends of Albion's Animals. We were formed in September 2013, Albion City Council began considering an ordinance that would forbid residents from feeding feral cats. There were concerns related to health and safety, property damage, threats to other wildlife like the songbirds. But in May 2014, they adopted this ordinance prohibiting residents from knowingly feeding animals they do not own, with the exception of bird feeders, with a penalty of up to $500 fines and/or 90 days in jail. The only exceptions were those who were feeding with the permission of the owner of feeding birds, or if they were participating in a city-approved trap, neuter, return program, which is our program. So in 2014, they officially recognized us as the city-approved TNR organization, and in May 2017, we formally incorporated as a 501c3. We began as a group of concerned citizens. We remain a group of dedicated volunteers, grassroots, working to humanely manage the free-roaming cat population in Albion. And there's a few important things there, which is humanely managing and free-roaming cats, which I'll get into a little bit more detail of. Doing this through colony management and promoting responsible pet ownership in Albion. So when I said that free-roaming cats was a little bit complex, or there was a little bit more we needed to unpack here, it's because we identify three primary types of free-roaming cats. Feral cats, which are ones that tend to be raised in the wild. They really want nothing to do with humans. They are not the ones who will try to come up to you. They do not desire human companionship whatsoever. We work to trap and either spay, neuter, or sterilize these cats, vaccinate them for rabies, and return them to the colony after ear-tipping them for easy identification. At a distance, you can tell if an animal is ear-tipped that it has already been sterilized, it's been vaccinated at least once, and it's being maintained. There are stray cats. So these are cats that have either wandered away from their human home, or may be lost, or maybe outdoor cats or indoor-outdoor cats, barn cats that have developed a wider territory, and we'll discuss it a little later, but free-roaming cats can have a territory of up to 2 square miles. This was determined by a study that actually the Smithsonian Magazine did. So we work with homeowners to try and determine who owns these cats, and if possible, sterilize them, vaccinate them, so that they can't contribute to population growth or disease transmission. But without question, the single biggest component of the free-roaming cat population that we encounter is abandoned animals. So these are domestic cats that have been purposely discarded or dumped by their owners. They desire human companionship. These will be the cats that come up to you, try to get into your car, try to walk into your home, that will try to rub up on you and talk to you or beg for food. This was happening well before we started our work, and it continues despite our best efforts. So we work to live trap, to sterilize, vaccinate, and rehome these animals, usually through adoption. We have a foster adoption program as best we can, but some of them end up, especially if they've been outdoors for any length of time, ending up in a colony. So what we do, colony management and promoting responsible pet ownership. So feral cats cluster together. They are sort of group animals. They do determine territory, which, as I said, is up to 2 square miles. We define a colony, because we had to have some way to define it, as at least 4 animals living together in a set territory. So our first effort was to trap, neuter, and return these animals to make sure that the population growth is as little as possible, and also to do rabies vaccinations. The goal is minimal but healthy, because if you completely eliminate a population, you will experience the vacuum effect, which is that any cats that haven't been trapped will continue to breed, and more animals will move into that territory because it's no longer being held by other cats. Promoting responsible ownership. We understand that a main reason why animals are stray or abandoned is because a lot of people don't have the resources necessarily to take care of a cat. By that I mean that spay-neuter can be very expensive. The feeding, the litter, that can usually be done by especially people who are like low income, who desire a companion animal, but the veterinary care can sometimes be very expensive. And so you start with one animal that you've taken in, and all of a sudden there's litters, and one animal mouth to feed becomes more. So we work with local veterinarians and humane societies to offer discounted rates, especially to low income and senior residents, for spay, neuter, and vaccinations. So in Albion, the most well-known colony is the old Union Steel building, which is actually slated for demolition probably sometime in spring of next year. But it was actually only one of over a dozen colonies, as we define it, within the greater Albion area. In fact, our latest count was about 15. Of the original colony cats, only 3 were actually still there. But the remainder are stray or abandoned animals who we try to relocate them before the factory is slated to go down, because we don't want that vacuum effect. But dumping cats at Union Steel, or where people know colonies to be, or just derelict buildings, is an ongoing issue. In 2018, we actually rescued 2 adult cats, 16 kittens, including a litter that was about 2 weeks old, and a pet mouse that somebody had shoved into a paper towel roll and taped the shut and thrown it to the cats. Yeah, but our single biggest challenge is the abandonment of animals. And so we realize that if we can work with people to spay and neuter and vaccinate their cats before it becomes more than they can handle, that we could in some way address this issue. So I want to make sure that we're giving you, there's a lot of figures out there, okay? We searched out the most scientifically accurate and not ridiculous figures to be able to give you a true idea of the scope of population growth. So, assuming that an average mature cat will have 2 litters with a total of 12 kittens per year, assuming that 1 in every 5 females dies each year due to illness, injury, or deliberate human cruelty, so a 20% annual mortality rate, that the average litter size is 4 kittens, with about 15% of them dying before they're weaned, that the gender ratio is about 46.5%, so less than half, slightly less than half are female, and assuming that 35%, this is a figure that we really had to seek out because it's not included in a lot of things, assuming 35% of female offspring are caught and spayed before they can reproduce. Not factored into this, the average litter sizes can vary between 2 and 7. We've had significantly more than that. That unspayed females can actually go into heat at 4 months old, begin reproducing at 6 months with up to 4 litters a year, and that we're assuming no additional fertile females are being abandoned. So, assuming all of those, which, like I said, we did our best to keep our figures as scientifically accurate and reasonable as possible. So, this is the potential growth of a population starting with a single fertile female cat. So, we start with 1 breeding cat, assuming that it has 10 kittens in that first year, that 10 of them survive and 5 of them are fertile. So we now have 6 fertile females. Assuming 1 is killed, 2 are spayed, we end up with 3 breeding females with a total of 31 kittens, 26 survive, 12 are female. Where all of a sudden in year 3 we have 15 cats. By the end of the 5th year, we're looking at 205 surviving fertile females out of 1 fertile breeding female. And that's assuming mortality of adult animals. That's assuming a reasonable spay neuter. That's assuming death of kittens. you can see quickly how it can grow out of control. And that's why it is absolutely vital that every opportunity is taken to sterilize and vaccinate cats when the opportunity is there. So here's why that's important. In 2018, we actually spayed, neutered, and vaccinated 160 cats in Albion. This included feral colony cats, foster cats. Usually we try to get the kittens as early as possible and get them into foster so that we can find them homes, and we spay them as early as possible, which I believe is, what, 3 pounds right now? 3 pounds for female. Our priorities are the colony cats, the ones that are roaming, foster cats being readied for adoption so that we can keep that process going, and working with senior and low-income residents for their cats. But in general, if we have an option, we will prioritize spaying females over neuters of male cats. In 2019, we have already done 226 cats, with another 20 scheduled before Thanksgiving, reflecting the same priorities, and it was funded through community donation and local community grants. So common myths. 1, if we just catch and kill or stop feeding, cats will go away. Yeah, that's not going to happen. When cats move from an area, 2 things happen. As I said, the ones that haven't been caught and sterilized will continue to breed, and new cats will come in. That's why it's vital that you keep the populations as low and as minimal and as healthy as possible, because they will hold territory against those other cats. The vacuum effect is worldwide. It's been noted in multiple species worldwide. But simply put, you remove them from the area and we'll go right back where you started, which is a fertile population of unvaccinated cats. Catch and kill has been tried in many communities, and it ends up being an unproductive waste of taxpayer dollars because of the vacuum effect. Not to mention that what it's actually encouraging, when you're talking, it's why it's so important that we talk about humane management, because otherwise you're looking at the things that people will talk about is BB guns and bullets. They will talk, especially out in the townships if there's no ordinance against firearms. We'll talk about poison. We'll talk about, especially in river communities, drownings. What that actually is encouraging is animal abuse and neglect, which is something that no community should be allowing or uplifting in any way. Common myth. So a common myth that we encounter is a lot of people think that because we are the city-designated trap, neuter, release organization that we're actually funded by the city. We don't get a dime from the city. We get permission from the city, and that's about it. So we are funded completely by membership fees, donor supporters, and grant seeking. We have a shelter. That is wrong. We do not have a shelter. We have a lot of very dedicated volunteers who are currently fostering and hosting animals until they can be adopted. And there's actually a lot of rehab going on. I actually have 6 currently in my home, and I do not identify as a cat person. I'm more of a dog person, but at the same time, sometimes it's really hard to look away when there's a need. We're always short of space, and foster homes and adoptions are always needed. Number 4, domesticated house cats can survive and thrive in the wild. There are instincts, yes, but they do not have the skills necessary to survive, especially kittens and especially in harsh weather, which is a reality of Michigan. And beyond that, they really don't want to. Domesticated cats desire contact. They want to be with humans. They want to cuddle with you. They want you to feed them. But in general, they want to be with you. And lastly, it's also against county and state laws to abandon an animal or cause an animal to be abandoned. Feral cats are a threat to wildlife. Both yes and true and false. In general, cats are lazy. If you've ever had a cat, you know that they are lazy. Cats are mostly scavengers. They're going to go for garbage scraps. They're going to go for rodents and burrowing animals. They will, so studies of samples of the diets of outdoor cats confirm that they are 3 times more likely to have mammals than they are birds. So feral cats, we supplement feed, especially in the winter, but that encourages them to keep hunting so that they are not going after challenging prey. So in conclusion, we are a small group of volunteers relying on our members and donor support and grant funding to do a difficult and important task that is never ending, but it has to be addressed, and so we can't do it alone. So we are always seeking new members or those who are willing to advocate for us. But yeah, so in 2018, 160 cats, 65 of which were colony cats. So you can see the impact that we're having, the purposeful impact that we're having, especially for low-income and senior residents. anticipating probably 250 this calendar year. We spend every dollar of donations and grants that we received, and we get a lot more requests than we can actually ever meet for a variety of reasons. Funding is one of them, but also working with our agencies. They can only allot so many things to us. So we get donations, we do the family fair, Direct Your Dollars fundraising. Any Spartan Nash receipt works, so if you happen to have them from your family fair here in Marshall, we will happily take them. We do Amazon Smile, and you can direct your Amazon purchases, and we get 0.5% of eligible purchases sent to the group. It's a little, but it can add up. And that's what I have for you. I tried to keep it as brief as possible. Do you have any questions for us? This is just an example of what a small community and a small group of dedicated volunteers can achieve. So when talking about the growth rates, 226 cats, that's a lot of cats that are no longer reproducing. But free-roaming cats will never truly go away, and I don't think we would want them to, just because of the things that they can do in the environment in terms of rodents and insects and such.
And I would like to say a couple of things too, because I am the treasurer for Friends of Albion Animals. I'm concerned with Albion. I was born in Albion, and I am involved in that group because they have a far worse problem in Albion than they do in Marshall. And I believe that a lot of the reason that Marshall does not have nearly the problem is that volunteers, Alley Cat Allies, or Alley Cat Angels, they were called, about 20 years ago formed. I think Nancy Treese, Debbie Reynolds, Sarah Willard, I'm not sure who all was in that group, it did since dissolved. But they have been doing this in Marshall for like 20 years. So, whereas Albion, I would say, could well have 400 or 500 stray cats, I'd say Marshall probably has about 150. That would be a guess. There's hot spots where we do not work up at the Calhoun County Fairgrounds. I've helped a lady that lives up there. There's a lot of stray cats up in the fairgrounds, and they come down to the houses around Washington Street. I have been told when I'm at the farmer's market, because I bring adoptable cats to the farmer's market, I've been told that the trailer parks at both ends of town have rampant stray cats, again, because the cats get left behind when the people move out, transient population. Informally, we call ourselves Marshall Community Cats Alliance. It's essentially 3 of us. And I have standing 2 appointments every Thursday to trap and fix cats in Marshall. Whereas I also transport the Albion ones. So I take 6 cats every week, all year round, except for holidays, out to Eaton County Humane Society, $40 a cat. We use our own money to do this. We probably need to get a little more organized in Marshall, maybe also form a 501c3, seek out donations. You're always, time and everything else is always a factor in everything. But I do believe that it has helped Albion. There are people in Albion that still think it's illegal to feed the cats. We always have to set them straight. It gives the police officers, when people have a complaint about stray cats, they're sure it's illegal, they call the police on somebody for feeding a colony. The police officers can say, are you a member of the group? Are you authorized to feed these cats? And have the cats all been fixed? And we encourage people. There was somebody in Albion the other day, we found out she was feeding cats, and neighbors were complaining. We got all 4 cats fixed. The 5th one had to be euthanized because he was in such poor shape. She joined our group, she paid for those 4 cats to get fixed. Now if there's a complaint, we can say she's a member of a group, she fixed all her cats, these cats will naturally decline on their own. Another person had the police called, and they were already able to show every cat was ear-tipped, every cat was fixed. The police officer told them, well, you can work with her, she can move the feeding area slightly away from your house if you'd like, but she is following the law. So it does give the police a way to answer a complaint about cats. Of course, that is always a problem, as is free-roaming dogs, too.
Yes.
So, a whole other matter.
Free-roaming dogs are an issue in Albion as well.
So anyway, that's my 2 cents about Marshall. And we would really like it to be considered. I know this is in the presentation stage, but I do think it would be helpful for Albion to have, or for Marshall, to have something similar to
'Cause if-
go in that area and solicit their help and engage.
Because if you're feeding cats, it's important that you're also caring for the rest of their needs, which is sterilization and vaccination, which benefits the entire community. Choosing to simply not feed is not an effective way of going about it. If there was an organization, a formal organization in town, also it would be a way to fundraise, but also to draw people of similar interests together and really just maximize the efforts and the impact that it can have on the community. And we've certainly seen that. I belong to a lot of organizations in Albion, and I have to say that FOAA is the one that is consistently growing. We're actually outgrowing our meeting space because we've found a way to have a wonderful impact on people's lives and allowing especially senior and low-income folks to have a companion animal that they don't have to worry about becoming more than they can handle. So.
Have you considered, too, you're talking about a 501 in Marshall, just merging the Albion Marshall
That would be a possibility too. I mean,
seems to make more sense to me.
yeah, it may well be. I don't know if you want to change the name or just have one umbrella of some type, but that has been in discussion too.
You-
The only issue with that is we would have to, if somebody donates to Friends of Albion Animals, we can't really use those funds for Marshall. And
Right,
vice versa.
right, and I agree with that, but so you would have to kind of merge and perhaps change the name if need be,
Yes,
but,
yes, yeah. Because a lot of times when people donate, they want it specifically for the town that they live in.
yep,
you know, so.
exactly.
But all of that is definitely open to discussion. The goal is to continue the work and to see the impact for the communities. Any further questions?
So
Thank you.
specifically, what you'd ask from the council is just to consider an ordinance like Albion's. So that you
Maybe
can operate.
without the very stern penalties that got them a letter of protest from the Humane Society of the United States.
Not sure about jailing anyone for 90 days for feeding a cat.
Yeah, but it's something that would make it more heavily encouraged that if people are going to be feeding free-roaming cats, that there also is an avenue for them to also make sure that those animals are not reproducing. So,
And like I said, reiterate the animal cruelty portion
Yeah.
of it too. So.
yeah, because,
Yeah, that should be highlighted right at the top.
yeah. So I'm not sure, does Marshall have an animal welfare ordinance? The counties is very explicit, but because we're experiencing in Albion that because there is not a similar animal welfare ordinance in Albion, that sometimes enforcement is problematic. And, sometimes we just encounter, the example that we had here about Union Steel is actually a very small example. We're right now dealing with enforcement on a very specific woman who we've tracked to who've dumped over 30 cats in the last couple of months, 2 of which are in my home, and I'm not sure how many you might have. But these are domesticated cats who are not at all prepared to be heading into a Michigan winter. So, okay.
Tom, what is our ordinance on?
Well, what brings this up is because, I'm going to guess, maybe 10 years ago, Nick, you may remember, we had a situation along the Riverwalk, and we met with a group, I don't know all the, I think it was
Yeah,
Ms.
like
Reynolds
Ms.
and Ms. Joyce, is that we would, that any of the feral cats would be over on the east end of town. What has happened since is there's been homes put underneath the Riverwalk, feeding along the Riverwalk, which is against our ordinance. It says you shall not feed animals in the park. And so we have a situation of how to instruct our police officers to what to do, because we do have an ordinance that says that. And we had, I remember at that time, a girl that was bit by a feral cat, and of course had to go through some painful time there. But at that time, that's when that piece of legislation was put in there, that if there would be any feeding of animals along the or in the parks, except we were going to allow it in the compost area. And so right now we've held off until we had the presentation. There was some comments. We have some police officers here but we also have neighbors who live near the Riverwalk that are seeing more animals, not just cats, because the feed is there. And so we're getting complaints on the other side of, I live there and I'm dealing with all these other small animals that are coming in because of the feed is there. And so we have a situation, we have an ordinance on the books that we have held off for really enforcing because we knew there was going to be a presentation coming. So that's the problem with at one time, again, the vacuum, I guess, is when, I never heard that word used for that purpose, but is that there's a lot of cats over if you go to the compost center, you see them all the time there, but there's now many more along the Riverwalk area. And
I think they're everywhere.
well,
I know, I've seen
They're
it.
going to gravitate to the park because there's a source of water and there's woods for them to hide in. We certainly don't put them there. We have fixed the majority of them. We can't really herd cats into a compost area. You can't, as you said, the saying, herding cats. We would just like to let the numbers naturally go down, which we're hoping to do. But if we do try to remove them or not feed them, they're still going to be there. That's our contention. And I kind of summarized that in the letter that I said. I did have the police called on me for feeding the cats. I really don't think that was his real issue. I think he was angry at me for something else, and I think that triggered this whole complaint because, yeah, there's woodchucks and possums in the woods, but, I just am not sure that we overfeed to the point that we're feeding the whole wild animal population of Marshall. I mean, the cats pretty much eat it and they're done, so.
So our situation, we have an ordinance on the book. You give us the authority and you put it on the book for the purpose. And so, like I said, we've held off probably the last couple months, Scott and Tony. So, but again, we do have the other side where the neighbor is complaining and saying we're not enforcing the ordinance. And so
We have
it's
that
a sort of, we're
every
caught
ordinance.
in the middle. And I am a cat person, so and we never have dogs, we always have cats. So, but we just need really some guidance. I mean,
It would be my opinion, we should revisit the ordinance itself and have a discussion on it sooner than later.
okay.
That would be my opinion.
Yeah, I was looking for it here, and I wasn't able to come up quickly with it right now, but it basically talks about feeding of animals on city property.
Right.
Now, what happens off the city property, I mean, because the Riverwalk is along,
In this end of town, I wasn't even feeding on city property, it was Dark Horse property.
right, that's what it was.
But it happens to be near his house. So I did try to work with him, and I have been slowly trying to get it as far from his house as I can. But like I said, the other issue is this gentleman's relatively new to that area, he's only been there a year. If he had been there 3 years ago, he would have seen twice as many cats. So he is blaming me for something because he doesn't have any context about how many there used to be. That's the other issue. It's like rather than seeing the results, and in fact, Aaron Horst did the perma-built buildings when they were torn down. The cats had apparently been in those warehouses breeding for generations because as soon as those were torn down, they were everywhere and they took to the woods. And that's when we got involved. We didn't put them there. We've just been trying to slowly and humanely bring the numbers down to a more reasonable amount. It's still a little bit high. There's still probably about 20 that range from the railroad tracks behind the mill down to that end of the Riverwalk. But considering it was, I think at one time we were around 36, 37 a couple of years ago, that's a lot better. So.
I can put this on your next agenda, if that's what you desire, and again, it won't have a recommendation, it'll just be the ordinance. You can see the actual language, and you can decide, you make ordinances and you can rescind ordinances. That's the power that public give you, and then we enforce whatever rules you tell us to. Is that your desire then?
Yep,
We'll have it on the next agenda then.
Great.
that would be awesome.
Thanks for taking the time to come to present to us tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update.
All right, that brings us to item 10A on our agenda, public hearing for the conditional land transfer with Marshall Township for 15325 West Michigan Avenue. Tom's going to give us a little overview on that, and then we will open the public hearing.
We're very fortunate. We have a Master 425 agreement with Marshall Township, and we've done many over the last, gosh, I can't remember how many years now, but the good relationship there. We just renegotiated a few months ago the 425 on that it can be for utility purposes. It used to be water sewer. And in the negotiations, utilities are defined as water, sewer, electric, or fiber net. So we have 4 utilities that could be considered. And if a 425 is approved, it's an agreement between the city and the township. It's not with the land property owner. And then once a 425, the land comes into the city, it pays city taxes, it receives city services like police and fire, and then a portion of the millage is returned to the township on an annual basis. And so what you have here is a request that was made for this property to come into the city. It's the Marshall Activity Center, Back Road Saloon, other names probably, in the past, and this is the request. Marshall Township this is on their agenda tonight, and then in November, they meet once a month. In November 18th, they will be holding their public hearing and hopefully at that time approve. So if you were to approve this tonight, it would be, nothing would happen until the township approves. And the way this is written, the owner asked that the 425 not go into effect until the sale of the property, and that's written into this agreement. So I think that's the basics. I can answer any questions now or later, whatever you'd like.
Anyone have any questions for Tom at this point?
Could you just clarify the expectation that city would provide services, meaning extension of water or sewage?
In the agreement, water and sewer, the cost of any extensions is on the property owner. It is not a responsibility for the city or the township. In the future, if that area out on West Michigan Avenue was to have sewer, the township could do special assessments. We could jointly do special assessments if that was the desire, but at this time, we are not responsible for having any costs for water and sewer extension.
Other questions? We will go ahead and open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak may do so.
Dan?
All right. Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. So if no one has any further questions, the motion would be to approve the PA 425 conditional land transfer agreement with Marshall Township for land owned by the Michael Samuel Corporation at 15325 West Michigan Avenue.
So moved.
Support.
Got a motion and support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That moves us to item 12A. We have the MDOT contract for M227 pedestrian bridge. Tom, will you give us an overview on that, please?
Actually, your next 2 reports are related to this. A couple years ago, MDOT closed the pedestrian bridge on the South Kalamazoo bridge over the Kalamazoo River. They directed pedestrians to walk on the road, which we all know is unsafe. blessed so far. MDOT takes a little longer to do things. They are planning in the summer of 2020 to put in a new pedestrian bridge. Their rules are when they put a pedestrian bridge in, it's got to be 10 foot wide. So it's not like the Riverwalk bridges that are 5 foot wide, so this will be double. They would, as part of the construction, the electric and fiber net has to be relocated because the bridge will come in probably 2 pieces, be assembled in the road, and then crane lifted over onto foundations. And currently, we have electric and fiber net lines there. So this first report is an agreement to have MDOT pay us back the roughly $70,000 it would take for relocating those lines. And it's a very standard agreement with MDOT. Even though it's a temporary move, those numbers have moving it back to where the power lines are currently. Your second report, because it is related, is MDOT doesn't like to own pedestrian facilities. They want to move cars, and they want to, since this will be a standalone bridge, it will be not connected to the road bridge. It'll be on the north, be connecting to the Riverwalk, and to the south, they'll build a sidewalk. They want to transfer that bridge over to the city because they just don't want to have those facilities. And so we would, it's a steel bridge with a concrete deck on it, and it's a, so they would, the second agreement would be once it's all complete, we would have ownership of the bridge. So talking with MDOT, if they didn't, if we wouldn't accept the bridge, they probably wouldn't do it. I hate to say it that way, is they feel that they would just leave it the way it is, and 10, 20, 30 years down the road when that bridge is replaced, then they would think about doing something. But right now, it's an $800,000 project, so it is a big project for them, but they would like it to be in our hands when it's complete.
That means for all maintenance.
Yes.
What would be their liability if there was a problem in the next 5 years?
They do have warranty. MDOT requires warranties on projects, and I don't expect any. I mean, we did our bridges over the last 25 years in our parks in the Riverwalk, and we've had only one minor thing that came up actually a couple weeks ago over by the Monroe Street Bridge. There was a little washout that the contractor took care of, but there's very, very little maintenance on those. So both reports are connected, and they debated about putting them together in one report, but there are 2 different resolutions that MDOT wants approved.
Okay. Any other questions on the pedestrian bridge for Tom? All right, the first recommendation is to approve the resolution authorizing the clerk to sign the state contract number 19-5445 for cost reimbursement for the South Kalamazoo Avenue pedestrian bridge installation.
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The second part of that is to consider to approve the resolution authorizing the clerk to sign the state contract number 19-5401 for transfer of the new South Kalamazoo pedestrian bridge over the Kalamazoo River from the state to the city.
So moved.
Support. Motion and support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. That moves us on to item 12C. We have the emergency sewer repair on West Hanover Street, and Alec is going to let us know what happened there.
That was a mess.
That's an understatement. Thankfully, we had good neighbors during that project. So back in July 14th, I believe I have in my report, Sunday evening, there was a report of a sewer backup on West Green Street, and the street department was called in as customary, and they started cleaning the sewer, and they found a location at the intersection of Hanover and Linden that was collapsed. They kept pulling back gravel from the line. So they just figured out it was collapsed, so they stopped cleaning for the night, and we came out Monday morning and started to do a little more investigation, realizing the extent of the collapse, and we brought in bypass pumping to start pumping around the break in the sewer to keep the sewer flowing. We brought in a contractor to start excavating the sewer. The sewer is 15 feet deep, roughly, at that point in the sewer, and it was under about approximately a foot of water, groundwater. The water table is pretty high right there. So we ended up having to bring in dewatering operation and automated bypass pumping so that the wastewater staff wasn't there through the night like they were the first few nights. And then the original contractor wasn't able to stay on the job. They kind of came in on that one day to help us out, but they couldn't continue beyond that due to other scheduling. And so we put it out for bid to 3 contractors, and Davis Construction ended up having the low bid on the work. It was a time and materials job, so the estimate that they gave us ended up being pretty far under what it actually cost to do the job. I don't have that particular bill right in front of me, but I know a PO was originally drafted when they commenced, and when we realized that we were going to exceed that purchase order, we started capturing the costs and capital line that John set up specifically for that project. Once the project was completed, again, it took about, I think it was about a month total time from start to finish to have the sewer flowing again. And then with the paving contractor, it was another couple weeks before the project was fully complete and the roads were open again. We captured all those costs, and I think there's a spreadsheet in the report here that kind of shows the breakdown of the major costs, and including the paving that was paid for by the street department. They used some of their money that they were already going to spend on roads this year to complete that. The cause of the collapse we just determined was hydrogen sulfide gas that's naturally occurring in wastewater, and there's a lift station over up north of Yin High that actually discharge point is right at that intersection, and it's we call it the Fountain Street lift station, and it takes in about 25% of the city's sewer. And when it comes into the manhole there at the intersection, it's pretty turbulent, and that causes that gas to release. So we discovered that manhole structure, a good portion of the sewer right there, and then the manhole, next manhole, 2 manholes down, had quite a bit of damage from hydrogen sulfide. So we are currently getting pricing to line that whole stretch of sewer plus those 3 manhole structures and make repairs to those. And along with that, we are going to be reevaluating the red zone camera footage that we did a few years back and pin down all of our concrete sewer. I think there's probably a certain time frame that sewer was installed. I don't think it's used much anymore, at least not in the city of Marshall. Talking to contractors, there are still municipalities putting concrete sewer in when it's large diameter, but we're not doing that anymore. We're pretty much, new sewer is pretty much plastic anymore. But, a couple of challenges that popped up during the project. We had as the hole got deeper, it has to be wider to safely work, and with the water table being so high, we had some washouts which slowed the project down. We ended up having a storm sewer collapse right along the edge of the dig, and we had to have to take about a day and expose the extents of that collapse and repair that right in the middle of the project. So that was a little setback that added just more time to it. So what we're requesting here, the recommendation is to increase our capital outlay budget, line item 59900, 97026 to, I said by 150,000, but really it's at 0 right now. Increase that to 150,000 to cover the costs. There may be a few outstanding bills. I know just last week Phil Smith got a bill from the barricading company that was dated back in August, and we think it was for that job. The barricading company doesn't explain their bills very well. So that was the only project we had going at that time. So there's still maybe a couple bills that trickle in. I thought I captured them all, but again, so I think my total was about 140 something, and I just rounded to 150 to cover any costs that might pop up. And the lining and the manhole repairs that we plan on doing will be coming out of capital budget that was already approved, $60,000 for sewer lining. So we'll be doing that. Any questions?
I don't think so. Thank you, Alec.
All right.
Appreciate that. So the recommendation is to approve the use of fund reserves to increase the wastewater capital outlay budget for account 590-900-970.26 by $150,000 to cover the expenses incurred during the repair, and to approve the use of fund reserves to increase the major streets capital outlay budget for account 202-900-970 by $21,785.
So moved.
Support. A motion and support. We'll do a roll call vote, please.
Member Gates?
Yes.
Member McNeil?
Yes.
Member Metzger?
Yes.
Member Traver?
Yes.
Member Underhill?
Yes.
Mayor Karen?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. That moves us to appointments and elections. Item 13A, we have a Planning Commission appointment. The recommendation is to approve the appointment of Katie Reed to the Planning Commission with a term expiring November 1st, 2020.
So moved.
I know.
We have a motion and support. All in
Support.
favor, aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The second appointment would be to consider the recommendation to approve Jim Schwartz to the Planning Commission with a term ending November 1st of 2021.
No way.
I know. It's pretty shady. I don't know.
That's a problem.
All bite. So moved.
Support.
A motion and support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You got like 2 weeks off, 3 weeks.
That's enough.
Item 13C would be the recommendation to approve the appointment of Greg Beek to the Northeast Neighborhood Improvement Authority Board with a term expiring December 31st of 2020.
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That brings us to item 14 on the agenda, public comment on non-agenda items. Anyone wishing to speak may do so at this point.
Anyone?
Hearing none, we will move on to item 15, council and manager communications. Member Traver.
Nothing, thank you.
Okay. Member Underhill.
Nothing. I have Parks and Rec meeting tomorrow and first one in a couple months.
All right.
Hey.
Member Metzger.
I have a planning commission meeting coming up on Wednesday at 7 p.m. I cannot attend. If anyone would like to attend in my place, that would be awesome. I sit where Trish sits. So, let me know for somebody.
Thank you. Anything else?
I don't believe so.
All right.
Well,
Thank
there's
you.
plenty out.
Yeah.
I'll save it.
Staff. Member Gates.
Nothing today.
Member McNeil.
Nothing.
Okay. I just have a quick one. This Thursday, the 24th at 7 p.m., we have the Light Up Marshall Tree Lighting Ceremony starting at 7 o'clock downtown. This has been a project we've been working on throughout the summer. The Cronin Foundation, along with other people in our community, have very generously raised the funds to light up all the trees. So the lighting ceremony will happen on Thursday at 7. There'll be a brass quintet, some special recognition, and some cookies and coffee from Pastrami Joe's. So we'd love to see everyone down there. And I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.